So hopefully this is going to be not too long, but this is going to be my best quick crash course onto how to comp in Pro Tools. So I'm just going to go over some of the most basic tools that you're going to need to know how to operate and how to save the sessions. So this is what the file is going to look like. You're going to see the Pro Tools session right here, and also the backup folder. And so this happens automatically every couple of minutes. So if in the case your session crashes without a save, you can look at your most recent save here, and then look at the most recent save on the backup and open the one that's most recent. Also, in order to look in this view way with the window to see the description, you want to make sure your view mode is like this, because you might be like in this mode, or it's helpful to be in the vertical. What would this be called? Like just a way of viewing the file. So, all right, so let's jump into it. We're going to open Pro Tools, and we're going to see it loading. Honestly, Pro Tools 11 is pretty similar to 12. We're not going to have very many different. There's really nothing as far as what we're going to use that's going to make anything different between our experiences. It should all look the same. All right, so I just closed that by habit, but that first window is probably going to be whatever your most recent files are that you opened. I just closed that because the first thing I want to do is go to Setup and Playback Engine. And this is going to be, where do you want your sound to come out of? Most likely it's going to be just your built-in output, because you're probably not going to have an interface. So just choose built-in output just in case it's like on something else. This is just making sure that it's going to come out of your speakers, and keep the hardware buffer size the fullest because you're not recording. So this should be fine if you're in that mode. That's pretty much it. That's all we have to check. And we just click OK. And then let's go ahead and open the session. Alright, so I'm going to open the session. And it's going to start loading the tracks up. Now you're going to see this pop up because this is one of my UAD plugs. You're not going to have the device plugged in, so it's just telling you that the plugin's not going to work, which is fine. You don't need it, so just click OK. Alright, you may also get another pop-up that says your IOs have changed, and it'll ask you if you want to make a report. Just click no. You don't need to have any report. Doesn't matter. Alright, now that we have the session open, before you do anything to the session, the first thing you should do is go to File and click Save As. This is just for organizational sake. Be in the folder that the file's in, and I would retitle it to something like JDS Drums Doug Comp 01. Right, that way we just know that this is the version that you're starting to edit. And if you make any mistakes, you can always come back to that version. And then every time you reopen again, just keep on saving new versions as you build it up with different levels of it. It just gives us an ability to kind of always take a step back in case we need to, and in case something wrong happens. So it doesn't need to be save copy in, because that's copying the whole session again. We just want to do the save as and just record another version of this. So this is what it'll happen. I'll click save. It'll automatically start from that version. It'll move off onto that version. And if you go back to the folder, you'll see how it's building new versions. All right, so now the next lesson I'm thinking that we should really talk about is how the cursor works. So people like to use, sometimes people like to use these individually, and this way you have to keep on jumping up here. I'm not going to really get into hotkeys. We don't need to worry about that too much. But I don't really like using these individually because it's just extra work for me. So I usually like clicking on this little bar right here that highlights all of them. And that means that I get all these functions all at once. And that is always based off of what the cursor looks like. So when we have this cursor, this kind of something that you see in Word, there's probably a name for it. That means you're going to drop the playhead there. Whenever you see that icon, you're going to drop the playhead. When you see an icon like that, you're raising the volume. So this is raising the volume to the click right now. So this is an automation. Generally, you're not going to have to worry about this at all. We're not doing any automations. But we have to really look at what the cursor is doing when you're in the region. So on this part, here's where we're actually on a region now. We're in audio. On the top half, the left channel, is where you're going to see the cursor. So if you click anywhere in the top half, you're going to move the playhead. On the bottom half, you're going to see a hand. Now if you grab, you'll highlight the region, and if you drag, you'll move the region. If you drag here, you're not moving the region, you're just selecting an area. So drag here, it's moving the region, drag here, selecting the area. You shouldn't ever have to be doing this, because this is changing the time. You should never have to be moving any regions when you're doing any comping. But this is just important to be able to see the difference between this and this. Also, you're going to have to know a couple shortcuts because you're going to be comping. So the most important one is going to be B. And so if we highlight this section and press B, it's going to cut that area. You're going to see the lines being cut. So that's one shortcut you're going to have to know. Just cut an area, B. Cut an area, B. And the most common shortcut that pretty much everybody knows is undo, which is Command Z, or with Windows it's probably like Control Z or something. Those are pretty much the same. So Control Z, backspace, and then cutting something with B. And once you cut the region, you can start promoting it to other places. But hold on, there's still something else that I think I want to talk about with this. Oh, okay, yeah, so you're cutting the region. Let's just go ahead and move into the actual playlists here, and then we'll dig into how to actually control these controls. So you notice I'm not seeing any recordings here because we're on the top playlist that has no number assigned to it. That's going to be the one that we want to comp up to. So this is our top playlist, and here's all our recordings right here. And that's with this little arrow right here, you see all these recordings. Now, I don't want you to go ahead and change this way because we're going to see the playlist now appearing, but we have no way of seeing all of them at once. So we always want the top playlist to be the one that doesn't have the number. And then we're going to, oh, and also, just in case, before we do anything, you always want to make sure this is highlighted because this is the group. This is what I was talking about the other day, where you want to make sure it's always grouped together, because if I do something to kick, I want it also happen to snare to top. I want the same action to happen to all the recordings at once. So what we're going to do to be able to see all the playlists at once is to click on this thing that says waveform, and you can click on any of them really, but we'll start from the top. Start from the topmost recording. Click on playlist. That's going to pop out every recording we ever did. So we're seeing all the playlists at once now. And we can see it all the way down, all the way down. Oh, we have a bunch of playlists here too, so just ignore these. And then we're going to get the snare and see the same thing repeat. Same thing repeat. So all we really mostly need to look at is probably the kick, to be honest. Oh, and also, man, okay. Also, in order to get close and zoom in and out, that's going to be T and R. R zoom out, T zoom in. So you're always going to want to be zooming in and out. So there is a couple hotkeys here that you're going to have to know. So we're going to zoom into the kick. We're going to see the grid, and we're probably going to want to expand this a little bit so we can see it a little better. So you expand it by grabbing the bottom half of it. And again, like I said, grabbing the top half of the region is where you're going to highlight. You don't want to grab the bottom half because it's going to grab the whole thing and then it's going to start dragging it. And we don't want to do that because now we're going to start putting things out of time. All right, so say we want to listen to this part, but we're not sure we want to actually use it yet. We're going to click solo, and now we're going to be listening to anything on this region. And because we're in a group, the same thing's happening to every single recording in this whole thing. We're actually going to see all the way through that even the snare has been soloed and that region's grabbed. So they're all being grabbed at once, which is what we want. And now that we soloed it, we're going to listen to just that region. Now, let me make sure my click's muted. If you want the backtrack on, you can mute it. And so we'll click spacebar to play. So now we're listening to that region. And if we want to listen to the next take, we go down here, highlight it, click solo, and now we're listening to that take. Now, I'm hearing some doubling happening here, and I think it's because the microphone that's room 3 is out of sync. So for now, I would honestly turn off the group and just hide and make inactive. If you click hide and make let's undo that. Oh shoot! Undo that. What's going on here? I'm making mistakes. Let's go back to 1. Do that again. Make active. All right. We don't really want to listen to this thing at all because it's out of time and it's not an important microphone. And it's too much work to try to correct right now. So we're going to right click and click hide and make inactive. But if you do it when the group's highlighted, it's going to do that to every single region. We don't want to hide and make inactive every group. So we just have to disable the group, right click, hide, make inactive. Now we're not going to hear that anymore. We're going to open playlist again. Oh, see, if I open playlist, well, I opened playlist on the wrong one. I opened it on the backtrack. But if we open playlist again, when the group's not highlighted, you're going to notice it's only going to open the kick. And it's not opening all the other tracks. So we have to make sure the group's activated before we make any more actions. So activate the group again. The playlist opens. I don't know why this is taking so long to open. Oh, it's probably because I'm recording this video. Alright, so now it's opened. We'll highlight it by grabbing the top half of the region. Click solo. And listen. Excellent. We're not having any timing issues. It's sounding good. So yeah, just go ahead and hide the room 3. I don't care about it. It was an extra mic. Unfortunately, it's out of time. All right, so once we've decided that we like this take, we have this little arrow right here that's a promote. And now we're going to promote that to the final region. This is the one that, again, had no number on it, because this is going to be our main listening track. And that's where we're going to start grabbing takes, putting them all together. So I like that one better. I'm going to promote that one. I like red better. I'm going to promote this one. And they're going to keep on promoting up to the top track. When there's no solo enabled, you're going to be listening to this track by default every time. It's not going to listen to any playlists when there's no solo. It's going to listen to this one. And even if you solo this, the only difference is you're not going to listen to this one. So once again, can't hear that anymore. So generally, you're not going to need to press that. The equivalent would be to just click mute on that one. So now we're liking all these different takes, we're promoting them. At this point, here's where this feature, again, having everything at once, is really useful. Because even though I promoted just that little section, I can go to the edge and see how we have this sideways, I guess it kind of looks like a parenthesis or bracket. that's indicating that I'm going to have the ability to drag this out. So now I can drag this out, and it's basically showing me this section from this region. And you can also verify by the number. It's going to say take 20, and you can start 01, which is the playlist, and the 20th recording that we did that day. I don't know why it's all the way up to 20, but for some reason 20 was the starting recording. And the 05 is something, just ignore the last number, that has to do with like how many versions of your cuts. I really don't pay attention to that. But 20 is going to be your indicator that you're grabbing from which version of recording, and 1 is going to indicate the playlist that it's on. But so when we drag out like that, we can see, we can keep on sliding at what part we want it to be in by keeping everything in time. So now you're seeing this one overlap here, right over it. See? So that's really a great way to slip tracks and not be, you don't have to be super perfectly accurate when you're grabbing a section, because once you push that section up, you can just go, you can just use these little brackets that'll appear, it always appears right in the middle of the region. Not at the top, not at the bottom, it's right in the middle. And that's your way of dragging out sections. That's really useful. The next step is, once you've dragged it, this is not as critical a step, because again I said that I would kind of go in there and clean this part up. But if you want it to like blend, you grab the bottom half and you see this little thing, this little black square, and you can create a crossfade. But right now I'm in grid mode, which is the mode that we want to be in, because if we're not in grid mode, we might push something at a time. So it's good to be in grid mode most of the time. But this crossfade is way too big because it's snapping to the grid. And this grid right now is on 1/8 notes. If we want a finer resolution, then we want 32nd notes. Now we can see the grid broken down to 32nd notes, and it'll snap to that. But I recommend probably not being in 32nd notes. That's probably too fine a resolution. We'll keep it at 1/8 notes. And if we don't want if we don't want this region to get so large, like snapping so large, we have to be in slip mode. And that's when you click this, then it'll slide to any length, right? But in order to not be jumping back and forth, jumping from grid to slip, the faster way to do it is when you grab right there, you hold Option, or you hold Command first, and that temporarily puts me in slip mode. So now I can slip these crossfades, and they're not going to snap to the grid. And you have to make sure you let go of the mouse first before you let go of Command. If you're holding Command, slipping, finding your right spot, and then let go of Command, it's going to go back to grid before. So again, holding Command, I recommend staying in grid and then holding Command to be in a temporary slip mode, so you can control exactly how big you want these crossfades to be. If you go to the top side, it's only gonna fade one side of the track like that, and that's not good, because now we're gonna get volume, silence, volume, right? We want it to be a smooth transition between the two of them, so we have to grab the bottom half of this region. Again, all these functions happen individually here, but I like keeping it in this one because it's faster, and it just depends on where you're grabbing on the region. Alright, so honestly, I think that's pretty much most of it. Like, you're just basically gonna keep on listening to these takes, pushing them up, grabbing an area, putting them to, getting this bracket thing so you can get it at the right spot, putting a fade on there, just dragging it apart until you've compiled the best version of your takes into this whole thing is finished all the way across. One of the things you just have to really be aware of is you're not tricking yourself and listening to something you're not listening to. So don't, you might have a solo happening on 8 and you don't actually see it in your screen, and you think you're listening to this when you're just still listening to 8 forever, right? So that's something that you're definitely going to want to be pretty vigilant on, is making sure that you're not listening to something. Like, it's happened to me many times where I'm like listening to this track, thinking I'm listening to this track, and I'm actually still listening to the, the 8th take. So just be careful about that. But when there's no solo on, we're listening to the compiled version. And see, like that's a perfect example actually right there, is to listen, like if you listen to the, there's a crash, or, I mean, there's some kind of symbol that was bleeding right there, and I could hear it disappear right as that region crossed. So we have to make sure we listen to the decay, not, I mean, I feel like I'm breaking this down way too much than I need to, but you understand that we have to pay attention to like decays crossing properly. So that since that decay was there, we'd have to like drag this out, and we could probably go scroll all the way down to find the overheads. Yeah, this is gonna be hard to see. Oh my gosh, this is so slow right now. I'm not even scrolling anymore, and it's still scrolling because it's that delayed. But I'm trying to scroll all the way down to the point where I would see where that bleed was. And these long decays are essentially symbols. And so we might accidentally cut in the middle of them. We don't want to do that, because that's where we're going to really notice a problem. Anything else to go over? There might be, okay, so there is one more thing that you should probably know when it comes to soloing that makes things a lot easier. If you noticed, when I'm clicking solo, it's turning off the last solo and moving to the next one. Your settings might be wrong, and I think by default they have solos set up. Here it is, options, solo mode. I think right now, I think by default it's in latch mode, and latch mode's bad because if I click, oh, I guess it doesn't happen to playlists. Okay, so that's not an issue. Typically, if you're in multiple audios, when you're in latch mode, it's going to solo multiple things at once. And it's not going to erase your last solo. But I think you're not going to have an issue with that. But just to be safe, I would put it solo mode in XOR. And that means that it just kills, it operates like this, where it's unchecking your last solo, so you're not accidentally listening to multiple regions at once. I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to cover. Sorry it was so long-winded, but I think this is probably the best way to kind of just dig into it and get these songs cut up. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. Just make sure you're not sliding things out of place like that. That's very bad. That's going to really throw things out of time. And I don't think there's any other settings I can think of that you would need to be in, because we're not mixing. Decide whether or not you want to have your click on. Don't worry too much about. I mean, listen to your ear. Don't really listen to the grid. The grid's going to always show that you see this hits a little early, but it's such a small amount of early that it's not going to be an issue. If your ears say that it's in time, it's pretty much in time. So don't worry about doing any kind of like cutting right here and then trying to drag it into time. Like that's a lot more advanced and time consuming, and that's something I can work on. Really, we just need to make sure that we're getting the best areas of each take. Okay, hopefully that's it. Thank you so much for helping out. in this area, and hopefully you and JP can get some stuff done while I'm gone. And I'll try to get into some of these while I'm gone too. Take care, man.